Hello and welcome back. This is going to be Chapter 5, so Book 3, Chapter 5. The title is Centaur Llama. If you remember last time, Jason had just made it to their suite at the house ATAC, and I had got the door open, said bye to Eugene, and was headed inside. If we're lucky, we might get visited by Memphis Blue. And come here, Bubba. Oh, no, we are not going to be. Anyway, he's the third musketeer in our exciting trio. Harold, I guess if you get up, pick him up and show him to the camera. That'll be fun. He's a little chunky, so he doesn't get up on the chair very much. Anyway. All right, here we go. Are we ready? All right, Chapter 5, Centaur Llama. I entered into what looked like a formal living room, or maybe one of those old greeting rooms where you entertain gentlemen callers. I think the idea was that this first room was highly decorated and perfect, so people coming over wouldn't see the livable parts of the house. The whole space was decorated to the max, and continued the light blue and white theme from the door. The first thing that caught my eye was a huge fireplace, outlined in white stones, which had a white marble mantel. On the mantel were several shiny white vases filled with colorful flowers. They provided the much-needed pops of color and natural greens to tone down the monochromatic feel of the room. There were two fancy blue sofas that looked more decorative than functional. I wanted to sit up straight on them rather than curl up with a blanket and read a good book. The walls, of course, were light blue with thick white trim everywhere. We had a few portraits on the wall of some people that looked like they were out of the 1700s. The portraits were real oil paintings, and the frames were almost bigger than the artwork. Other than that, there were a variety of knickknacks and other set pieces, like a serving cart for snacks. It was currently empty, but I made a mental note to sneak in donuts at some point. There had to be a place to get food around here somewhere. 3 doorways led off of the room, so I went to check them out. The first one was a bathroom with a sink, mirror, and toilet. The toilet was one of those really old-fashioned ones where the water was stored up further on the wall and you had to stand up to flush. It was all nice and clean, but it made me nervous about the plumbing and the rest of the place. The next door on the left led into a nice, large bedroom. It had a king-size 4-poster bed, and the room was big enough to sleep and get ready in. There was a large freestanding armoire for clothes, a dresser, a desk for makeup and fixing hair. The best part about the room was how soothing it felt. The greeting room was busy, almost too busy, but this was a space you could relax in. The walls were deep chocolate, and the floor was mostly a giant shaggy rug. The only ornate thing in the room was a full-length mirror. It had a swirly white border and stand, and it looked like you could ask it who was the fairest of them all. There was one doorway in here, so I took a peek. It led into a fully furnished, fully modern bathroom with a walk-in shower and large soaker tub. This place was perfect for Sandy. She could unwind from her day with a bubble bath, and there was plenty of room for her to get ready in the morning. I still had another room to check out, but I didn't think it would get any better than this, so I went ahead and wheeled in Sandy's suitcase and left it. I grabbed my suitcase and was wheeling into the second bedroom when I heard a "arr." I felt my heart skip a beat. Bermuda? I rushed into the room, and there on the king-size 4-poster bed was Bermuda. He was all laid back on the pillows like it was no big thing, giving me a happy, sleepy look. "Rawr," he said again. "Where have you been?" It was like, "Where have you been? I've been sleeping here all alone, and now I need some love." Right, boo-boo? Now I need some love. I quickly left my suitcase and crawled up on the bed with him. He started purring loudly, and he gave me a headbutt and a few licks as we curled up together. I wrapped my arms around him, gave him kisses, and he purred even louder if that was possible as we cuddled together. I was so happy to see him that I was at a loss for words. Bermuda was home. Bermuda was my furry baby, and as long as he was with me, everything would be all right. I rubbed his belly, beneath his ears and behind it and under his chin. Or behind his ears and under his chin. He gave me those happy, half-lidded eyes that says, "I love you, Daddy." And he made little paw scrunchies on my chest. We cuddled for several minutes before I looked around and realized we were not alone. There was a Centaur Llama in the room. I looked again and realized he wasn't a centaur and he wasn't a llama, but he sure kind of looked like it. He had the llama shaggy coat all over, and his face and ears looked llama-like. He also looked like a centaur because the upper half of him was human-like and was with a clearly defined chest, shoulders, and 2 arms. I hadn't noticed him right away because he was being so quiet and he was cleaning. He had a feather duster and he was using it to clean the other half of the room. I think it was a magical feather duster too, as it glowed in my magic sight, and everywhere it went the dust disappeared. I noticed the rest of the room, and it was certainly needed. The dust was layered on thick. It looked like those rooms had not been used in a long time. He looked around. He looked over and noticed me, noticing him. "Greetings, young master," he said. He sounded old and melancholy, like Gandalf had lost all will to live and decided to become a house elf. I realized his fur wasn't naturally white. It was the light gray that comes from age. "I pray you, do not be harsh with me. Your rooms are not ready, and for that I apologize. These old bones are not as fast as they once were." "Oh, no problem, that's fine," I said. He gave me a skeptical look, so I kept going. "Really, it's fine. It's just me at the moment, and I don't have much to unpack. Sandy has gone to some sort of meeting of the heads, so she won't be back until later. The other rooms look great, and you have plenty of time, so just do your thing and don't hurt yourself." He gave me another suspicious look, like I was just saying that to get him to lower his guard, and then I was going to smack him over the head or something. "Do you normally run into problems?" I asked. Everyone I'd run into at the house had been so nice so far. I can't imagine anyone being mean to this fellow. "Old mages expect everything to be perfect and they get upset easily. Younger mages like to play pranks." He gave me a look that clearly said I was in the young mage territory and needed to be kept an eye on. "They have too much energy and I'm a slow-moving target. I've learned it's best to remain unseen." "Oh," I said. "I guess I could see that. The organizers just wanted to get here, get unpacked, and get out the door to whatever adventure was waiting. They probably weren't gentle to anyone slowing them down. As for playing pranks, I'd been the recipient of a lot of pranks at school. I'd usually ended up hurt or humiliated. Pranks between friends were fun and ended up on YouTube. Pranks on strangers, or those that were different, were usually cruel." "I'm sorry you were pranked before. I've had that happen a lot to me and it's not fun. I know we've just met, but I can't promise you that I won't do anything to you that you won't want me to do." He looked a little happier about that and kept cleaning. "My name is Jason," I said. "And what is your name?" He looked surprised I'd asked and paused long enough that I'd wondered if he was going to answer. "My name is Anawana Wana Walla 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 Baka Baka Tekata," he said in a sing-song voice. I don't want to harp on the llama side, but it sounded like he was bleating and yodeling at the same time. "Oh, wow," I said. "I don't think there's any way I can remember that or even reproduce it if I could. Is there a nickname or an English name I can call you?" "You can't translate?" He sounded surprised. "I don't have a bank stamp," I said. "I've been told that does all the translation." He dusted for a few more minutes. "You must be young if you don't have a stamp," he said. "And yet you have a guardian?" He looked at the object of my affection, who was currently on his back, all 4 legs spread out, getting the belly rub of epic proportions. "I'm not sure if he's my guardian," I replied, "but I love him very much, as you can see. And he seems to go wherever he wants in the house. I thought that was just our house in Louisville, but I guess it includes this house too." "Huff," he said. "Well, I guess there's still hope for you." "Thanks," I smiled. "I'll try not to grow up to be an asshole." He looked at me to see if I was making fun of him. "Assholes suck," I said sincerely. "Assholes suck," he said sagely. And then he laughed. I think my honesty had tickled his funny bone. He cleaned, I loved, and we just existed in harmony for a few moments. I do not have a short name that works in English, he finally said. Do you have a suggestion for me? Let's see. I couldn't call him Centaur Llama. That might be offensive if he thought of himself as a human, or offensive if he thought he was a llama. So, I guess, How about just going with Ciel, or a name that started with Ciel, like Clementine, but that was a big name, so maybe shorter. How about Clem, I suggested. I heard a lot of L's and a strong C in your name. That reminded me of Clementine, but it's too big, so I thought of Clem. Clem, he said tentatively. That's hard for you to say, I injected. How about just Ciel? Does that work for you? Ciel, he said. Yes, Ciel. He smiled really big, showing off thick, square teeth. Ciel, I like it. I decided to make it more formal. Greetings, Ciel. I am Jason. I gave a sort of bow. I didn't want to get out of bed and stop loving Bermuda, so I gave the best bow I could. Best bed bow I could. Greetings, Jason. I am Ciel. He nodded his head in my direction, but he didn't stop working. And I'd like you to meet Bermuda, my furry friend, I said lightly. Bermuda rolled over, sat up, and gave him the full intent cat stare. It was almost like he knew what we were up to, and now he's being introduced. He wanted to check out Ciel for himself. They stared at each other for a moment, and Ciel's eyes got really big. It is the greatest honor to meet you, Ciel said reverently and swept into a deep, respectful bow. Then he stayed there till Bermuda looked away. I guess my baby had made an impression. Satisfied that all was well, Bermuda snuggled back up with me again and started grooming himself. Ciel went back to cleaning and all was quiet for a bit. His movements were practiced and efficient, but I could tell he was old and his bones hurt him. He was not only dusting the furniture, as I had a desk, a chair, an armoire, and a dresser as well. But at one point he stood on his back legs to do some high dusting. Hang on one second. But at one point he stood on his back legs to do some high dusting. It took him 2 tries to make it, and I could hear his bones pop. He was trying to be quiet, but still gave a soft sigh of pain. Do you mind if I ask you a question? I asked. You are a gay boy, I toy gay away, he said. Do what? Oh, I forgot. You don't have a translator, he sighed. In my language it means, how can I stop the tides? Well, I think he just threw some shade. It wasn't drag queen level read, but it was still shade. I was starting to like this guy. How come you are here getting the house ready and dusting? This is the house. Can't you just ask the house to get everything ready? Ah, to be so young again, he said in his old Gandalf voice. To think that everything can be solved with magic. Just wave your hand and poof, it's all done. He waved his duster at me. Everything has a price, young master. Everything. I'm not a mage like yourself, but from what I've seen, what separates the good mages from the masters is learning how to negotiate that price. Learn how to stretch your magic, to pay as little as possible to achieve what you need. Spend magic like it's the most valuable thing in the world. He jabbed his duster at me like it was a wand, because it is. And with that, he turned and continued dusting. I totally agreed with him. When I'd had my magic assessment with Sandy, she had shown me how paying attention to physics and using runes got dramatically better results with a lot less effort. It was something I'd taken to heart, something I enjoyed thinking about, like a puzzle. I agree with that, I said, but I don't see how this is saving magic. I'm sure the house would use magic to clean up the dust, but so does your duster. The truth is, the house isn't that good at dusting, he shrugged. It's good at making new things like walls and rooms, but it's terrible at doing simple things like dusting or heating water or serving food. It would cost a mage a reasonable amount of magic to have the house get these rooms ready. It costs nothing for me to work here, and although this duster cleaned up everything, it really doesn't take that much power. That sounded intriguing. I thought the duster was doing a really good job of making the dust go away. Does it do more than that? Oh, yes. For the first time, my ancient rune steward seemed excited about something. This is the Feather C250. It is the best and latest word in sanitation magic. There isn't anything it can't do. It takes care of dust, of course, but it also sanitizes and cleans everything from soap scum to grease stains. You can clean the bathroom, wash dirty dishes, and take kids' crown marks off the walls. This model is so advanced it even tightens the handles on drawers and buffs the floor. There isn't anything more nifty than my Feather C250. He said the last part like it was a slogan as he gazed at it fondly. I looked at it with new respect too. It looked so simple, but it certainly did a lot. And of course, it's very efficient, he said, finishing off our conversation. I'm sure it was. It sounded like he had his own version of a magic wand. It was nice to see that not everything in the supernatural world was about weapons and killing people. Although, I guess you could kill someone, then clean up the blood and the DNA evidence with the Feather C250. Okay, that wasn't macabre or anything. I shook my head to get rid of the image of the dead man on the floor outlined in tape. Time to change the subject. So how did you end up how do you know English, I asked. It sounds like you have your own language. And how did you end up cleaning these rooms? It's very nice that I can understand you. I'm sure somebody else would be able to clean the rooms just fine, but I'm glad it's you that is here. He looked pleased at the compliment and a little sad at the same time. Young master, I'm not here because I'm the best. I'm here because I'm the worst. No way, I said indignantly. I think you are doing a wonderful job, and we are having a wonderful chat. I think you are just perfect. Well, thank you. That is nice to hear, he said with gratitude, but his ears pulled in close to his head and he gave me a glum look. The truth is, I don't have the speed of my youth. Some would even say I'm slow, and that's why I'm here. Your house is the youngest of this gathering, which means you have the lowest standing of anyone here. That's why your rooms are out of the way and way in the back. They haven't had a total refresh, only a clean, and even that is being done by the most expensive Llama Centaur. Well, of course we are the lowest on the ladder, Ciel. That is only natural. I'm so new at this, but you have to start somewhere. And in America, we even have a song about it. Really? Ciel sounded relieved. It goes like this. I've got friends in low places. And that's how I ended up teaching my new friend how to sing a Garth Brooks song as he finished up the bedroom and started in on the bathroom. He had a very pleasant baritone voice, and we harmonized well together. I made a mental promise to myself to never become a stuck-up, self-centered mage. Being friendly and kind is who I wanted to be, and it can lead to wonderful moments like this. The work went quickly, and he was almost done before I got on my next question. So you never said how you learned to speak English, I said. I learned from a young master, not unlike yourself, he said. He had a particularly rough waker moment and ended up here in the ward for young mages. I think he needed a friend who wasn't magical, and I was the closest thing to that. I cleaned his room and he taught me to speak English. He told me about his family and homeland, and it was nice to take a break and just talk for a while. I'm not a healer or anything, but I could listen, and that seemed to help. He really loved to tell jokes too. He got a twinkle in his eye, and I knew a joke was coming. Knock, knock. Oh, we were doing knock-knock jokes. That's great. Puns are the highest form of humor. Who's there? I said the traditional words. To. He started grinning, but I didn't see where this was going yet. To who? I replied. No, it's to whom? He started cracking up. The joke wasn't that funny, but he had a brain kind of laughter, which was just over the top, and I found myself laughing with him. Since he liked knock-knock jokes, I told him the one about cash. Cash who? No thanks, but I'll take some peanuts. And that set him off laughing again. We traded a few more jokes while he finished off the bathroom. I hadn't noticed anything else that needed cleaning, so that must be the last of what he needed to do here. I thought he would move on, but he ended up sitting down on the floor, and we continued chatting for a bit. I thought he would sit down like a dog with his front legs straight and his butt on the ground. Instead, he sat all the way down to the ground with both legs tucked in like a cat. It was kind of neat, and he looked very comfortable. So what happened to your friend? The one that you learned English from. He got better, Ciel replied. He moved out of the ward and stayed here for a while, learning basic magic and continuing to adjust to the supernatural world. This house is mainly for advanced mages, though, so he eventually moved back to his old house. Did you stay in touch? I asked. Yes, he writes to me every now and then, but it's not the same, he said wistfully. I'd like to go and visit, but I'm not a mage. He said that like it explained everything, but I wasn't sure what he meant. I thought the house took care of portals and moving people around, I said. Surely it could move you around between houses? It can, he replied, but somebody has to pay the cost. Nothing is free. He sighed, and I took a moment to scan him with my magical sight. When I did, I was so surprised I scanned him again. Ciel had no aura. He had no defense against magic at all. I could see every part of his body, just like I was looking at my own. The poor guy was eaten up with arthritis, and his ankles were swollen and sore. No wonder he was slow. I'm sure it hurt to just move. The other thing that was interesting was he had a hard core of power about as big as a walnut right below his heart. His whole life setup was very different from anything I'd seen so far. Up to this point, I'd have said that all living things had an aura that protected and defined them. Inside that aura there was magic. Cows, dogs, rabbits, all had auras and a bit of magic. Bugs had it, although their auras stopped at their exoskeleton. Even plants had an aura and a touch of magic. Everyone had an aura except for Ciel. I was just getting ready to remark on this when Ciel decided to stand up, and he slipped. The floor wasn't slick or anything, and Ciel didn't slip much, but it was enough to shake him, and it looked like it really hurt. He froze, shuddering, before carefully getting the rest of the way to his 4 feet. He let out a long breath and his head dropped. Then he took a shuddering breath in and let it out again. Ow, he said, trying to pass it off as a little slip-up, but I could see he was still tense and shaking. I put my hand on his shoulder to steady him. He felt hot to the touch. I think that was a bit more than ow, I said. Maybe a bit more, he grimaced and tried to laugh it off. I tell you, young master, getting old ain't for the faint of heart. I get aches in places you didn't even know could ache. And it's not just some of the time. I ache all the time. I have to pee at the worst moments, and oddly, sometimes I can't pee at all. Some of my favorite food gives me heartburn now, and sometimes I get chills for no reason at all. My granny used to wear a blanket all the time, and I thought it was strange. Now I know why. I scanned him again while he talked. I had an idea, and this time I was looking at the overall problems in his system. His damage really wasn't that bad. It was persistent, and just about everything looked a bit worn, but it wasn't like he had broken bones or had been beaten up. There was a lot of work to do, but it was still less than was needed when Isabella kicked the crap out of me. Young master, you will never know the misery of growing old, and that is a good thing. Just know that when you're with old people and they slow you down, they aren't doing it on purpose. Getting old sucks. I'm sure it does, I said soothingly. I waited for a moment, then just decided to ask. Ciel, what if I could make it suck less? What? He sounded weary, like the weight of the world was on his shoulders and he was tired of carrying it around. What do you mean? Well, I don't know this for sure, but I think I can heal some of this. I waved at the worst parts of his body. He started to say something, so I hurried to continue. I can't give you any guarantees, and I don't know how much I can heal, but I think I'd like to try. Young master, he shook his head, I'm sure you feel like you can move mountains with your new magic. And I've heard that healing takes a tremendous amount of power and a whole lot of knowledge. I certainly appreciate the thought, and it's very kind of you to offer to help. I'm afraid that even trying to heal even a tiny part of me would burn you out and set you back years in development. He said it in a kind but firm tone. I wasn't ready to give up yet, though. My face was smashed in by a golem, I said quietly. His fist was huge and made of stone. It smashed in my forehead, popped my eyeballs, and caved in all the bones in my face. It knocked out my teeth and broke my jaw into multiple pieces. He looked at me in surprise as I continued. And that was just the start of the fight. I had a crazy, powerful mage kick the crap out of me and break several more bones. Ciel, I'm not a stranger to getting injured and healing myself. I can see exactly what is troubling you, and I think I can make it better. I can't guarantee it, but I really think I can help. He still looked at me like I was crazy. He also looked at me with a glimmer of hope. Crazy and hope wrestled in his mind for a moment, and I could see when the hope won. Okay, he sighed, if you're crazy enough to want to help me, then I'm crazy enough to try it. I'm an old Llama Centaur anyway, so what have I got to lose? Good, I said, giving him a hug. It was the first time I'd hugged a centaur-like creature, so it was a bit strange, but it was still good. He seemed a bit awkward at first, but hugged me back. Before we begin, are you finished with the rooms? Yes, everything is completed. Why? Well, I use healing spores as a way to focus my magic. They are powerful and work with your body to heal you naturally, but they also make you feel good. He nodded, but he wasn't getting it. They make you feel really good, I said, and now he just looked confused. Like, really good, I said, puffing an imaginary smoke and trying to look very high. He laughed. I think I know what you were saying, but that won't affect me. I already mix a little of the Purple Queen in my diet. My niece says it makes me much easier to live with. He gave his braying laugh again. I'm sure a little mellowing out helped their relationship. He'd been fun to hang out with, but I had a feeling he could get cranky when his arthritis flared up. Sounds good, I said. Give me a moment to put this together. I closed my eyes and focused inward. I could feel T hanging out on my right hand by my gem cell gauntlet. He was my healing tree ent, and together with his grove, he was responsible for making sure my body was healthy and in tip-top shape. T, I said. Here, he answered promptly. What can I do for you? I shared what I've seen of Ciel and what was troubling him. He isn't human, I said, but do you think you can help him anyway? He thought about it for a moment. I think so. The spores work with cells to refresh and restore them. He's made of cells, so it should still work. The healing room amplifies the spore's ability a lot, but as far as I know, it isn't specific to just humans. I think it will work at the cellular level too, so you should be able to heal him just as easily as you heal yourself. Great, let's give it a shot, I said, and then started working on the specifics. I didn't want to do too much on the first try like I usually did. That had gotten me into trouble before, so this time I wanted to start with a light touch. If all went well and Ciel started feeling better, then we could always do this again. I'd used over 50 healing ents on myself, so I decided to start with just 2. I'd used my gem cells for power and created a whole lattice on either hand, so I figured I'd start out with just 2 of them as well. The ents and the gem cells should run out of power before they made too many changes to Ciel. Part of me wanted to double this, but I listened to the voice of reason. I took a moment to fill the 2 ents and the 2 gem cells up to the max in their power. My magic flowed smoothly, and there was no problems. I'd already tested my magic at the oval, but it's still nice to verify that everything was working fine. When they were ready, I put my hand on Ciel's shoulder, and my 2 ents grabbed their gem cells and swung over to Ciel's body. I'd made T in his grove so they could move through me just fine. I'd wondered if they'd had any problem with Ciel's, but that didn't seem to be the case. They stretched their arms and swung through Ciel's system like Tarzan swinging through the jungle in search of banana pie. They set up shop on either end of Ciel, planted the gem cells, and then let their fingers and toes grow and wind their way through his system. Then they stopped and froze for a long time. I'd seen this happen before. They were mapping out Ciel's body and figuring out what needed fixing. After a bit, Ciel spoke up. I don't feel anything, he said cautiously. You won't yet, I replied. Just hang on. The spell is working. It just takes a bit to get started. I called it a spell because I didn't want to give away too much. I remembered what Sandy said about keeping my powers secret. He gave me a skeptical look but stood quietly and let the process continue. Since we are waiting, this is a good time to unpack, I said. I didn't bring that much, so it shouldn't take long. Ciel seemed to like the idea, so I opened up my suitcase and got to work. I put my jeans and shirts in the dresser drawers and hung up my one good suit in the armoire. Ciel brushed everything with his magic feather duster wand, and all the wrinkles fell out. He did that to my folded clothes too, and their folds looked more even, and they seemed to lay better. He was like a furry, four-footed Mary Poppins. The amount of clothes I had was just sad, and Ciel kept looking in the suitcase like more outfits were going to appear. "Is that everything?" he asked. I nodded. "Yep, that's everything." I tried to sound cheerful, like nothing was wrong. "Does Sandy have the same amount of clothes?" he asked cautiously. "I think so," I replied. She just has one suitcase as well. It's a bit bigger than mine, but not by much. She's a battle mage, so she doesn't go for all that girly stuff." "I see," he said, in the tone of voice that said we were up shit creek without a paddle. I didn't know what else to say. These were the clothes I had, and I couldn't go around naked. Well, I guess I could, but it would send the wrong message. Plus, it would be a bit breezy. If Tyler was here, he would just transform and wear whatever clothes he wanted. I really wished I had his ability. Then I really wished I had Tyler. We hadn't been apart that long, but I missed him already. I was saved from thinking about Tyler too much when both of the tree ants finished their analysis and kicked into gear. Their feet flattened out into boards, and they began surfing through Ciel, spraying spores out their hands. It was pretty cool to watch, although I was surprised at just how fast and how big the moss grew. Had the moss grown that fast for me? This was a different perspective, but I didn't think so. As the two surfing imps kept up their healing, I noticed the moss wasn't stopping. It just kept growing and growing. "Oh, I feel something." Ciel stopped and looked at himself. "I was wondering if you would," I said. "The healing just started. What does it feel like to you?" "It feels..." He paused and got this lopsided grin. "It feels good, like someone is spreading warm butter on my bones." That was an odd comment, but overall the experience sounded positive. "Now it feels like sweet buttercream icing on my muscles." I could see him relax a bit, like he was getting a good massage. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. This feels good." He relaxed a bit more. "Oh, baby," he moaned softly. "Oh, that feels good. Oh, oh, I couldn't help laughing. He sounded like he needed a room and some alone time. "Why don't you head back to your place and relax for a while?" I suggested. "The process will just keep going on its own. I don't need to do anything more." He was still moaning in pleasure as I zoomed in to see how things were going. I was shocked to see the ants were finished with the first pass and starting on the second, more detailed run. Both ants still had plenty of power, and the gem cells were over half full. Maybe it was the lack of aura, but my magic was being a lot more effective in his body than mine. I took his hand and started leading him towards the front door. I had no idea where he lived, but hopefully he would get there all right. His grin got even more lopsided, and his eyes got that happy, spaced-out look. "You are the best mage ever," he proclaimed. Then he licked my face. I think it was the llama version of a kiss, and I was very surprised. I didn't have to look to know the mushrooms were kicking in. "Like really," he said emotionally. "I thought you were just a skinny little thing with only 2 legs and no back end, but you..." He paused to hug me and lick me again. "You are all right in my books." "Well, thank you very much," I replied. "You are all right yourself." We were in the sitting room and heading towards the front door. "I want cake," he said brightly. "I think you have some cake at home," I said, trying to keep him focused in the right direction. "I should go get some," he declared, and took a firm step towards the fireplace. "Where are you going?" I tugged on his arm, trying to get him pointed towards the front door. "Home," he said, confused. Then his eyes lit up and he giggled. If you've never heard a Centaur Llama giggle, you are missing out. It's funny as hell. "Young master, we don't use those hallways. Those are for you magical folk who won't get squished. Instead, the house has given us our own ways." He wiggled his fingers in the air like he was an old-school magician summoning the mysteries of the universe. Then he giggled again, and I giggled with him. He might be used to his purple queen, but T's healing shrooms were on a whole nother level. Then he turned and walked into the fireplace. I gasped and thought the upper half of him would bump into the wall, but somehow the fireplace stretched and he walked through. He was still talking about cake when the back half of him passed through the fireplace. Through the threshold, the fireplace shifted and everything went back to normal. Once again, it was regular height with an empty grill waiting for wood. Nothing on the mantle. With an empty grill waiting for wood. Nothing on the mantle had been knocked about or disturbed. I touched it just to be sure. It was real. Who knew Centaur Llamas had Santa Claus powers? Now he was gone, the room was quiet again. I looked around the sitting room for a few minutes to see if there were any other obvious surprises, but I couldn't see anything. I went back to my bedroom, finished unpacking my toiletries, and curled up on the bed with Bermuda while I waited on Sandy. I lay there for a while, just thinking, when I felt a stirring in my lower region. Nature was letting me know that what comes in must go out. Since I wasn't doing anything productive anyway, I might as well use the time to dump a load. I gave Bermuda a kiss and told him I'd be back, and then trotted off to the bathroom. It was modest, nothing like my underwater treasure themed one at home, and not as nice as the one in Sandy's room, but it had all the necessary elements a bathroom should have, except for one very important thing: toilet paper. And here ends the chapter. And believe it or not, the next chapter picks up with the quest for toilet paper. You will like it. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, all right. You all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Oh, careful, Bubba. Bubba, don't fall.